Greetings, my fellow philosophical thinkers. LL3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mountains of South Florida. And today's date, Wednesday, August 8th, 2018. So let us begin. Oh yeah, nice and warm again as usual. A little breeze comes out here once in a while. I am at Stash, located at 109 Southwest 2nd Avenue in the heart of Fort Lauderdale. Himmershey District to be exact. Right, Janset with America's Backyard and Revolution Live. Well, I'm learning the microphone a lot better than before. Looks like they had it in the corridor direction, and I was 180 degrees different. So did a little testing, and about time I got it right. Guess I was watching some of those videos. Always got to learn something. Hopefully it'll come down a lot clearer than before. And, to be very sincere, a lot of stuff is occurring as usual. I know I repeat myself enough times, and there's going to be a train coming by, but I'll be okay. So, people still are talking about what happened to Alex Jones, and even... One moment. Yeah, mainly about him with the big tech purge, and of course others is being accumulated as well. But hey, it's big tech Orwellian propaganda as usual. There are claims the Chinese government may be involved, the New World Order and all that. So they're all bellying up in the name of safety, security, and sensitivity. Well, you know where I stand on this. I am pro-free speech, period. I don't have to agree with these individuals, like it or not, but they have the right to be heard. Who's forcing me to listen to these folks? I always do it my own free will, plus observe responsibly. Well, I was talking about that yesterday, so I'm not going to be repeating myself. However, some interesting stuff has come around here. And I'm going to start off here, BSO related, to be exact. This came out today from the FloridaBulldog.org, and written by Dan Christensen. It says here, BSO, which is the Broward Sheriff's Office, hides long list of lawsuits filed against its costly new jail healthcare company. So looks like it's continuing, right? This is what Mr. Christensen has to say. The Broward Sheriff's Office has refused to make a public list of federal and state lawsuits filed against its newly hired jail healthcare provider, citing a state law that protects trade secrets. Correct Care Solutions, LLC, submitted its lengthy litigation history while bidding this spring for the Sheriff's Inmate Health Care Service contracts. Florida Bulldog filed a public records request seeking the list, but BSO withheld 27 pages. That's what happens when you got folks in there, including Sheriff Scott Israel, breaching his oath of office once again for violating Article 1, Section 24A of the Florida Constitution. Congratulations, not my Sheriff Scott Israel, for choosing poorly once again. BSO did not explain why it considers a list publicly filed lawsuits to be exempt from disclosure under the Florida's public records law. Correct Care won the bidding for Broward's inmates health care services contract in June. The contract initial term is for 3 years, but can be extended for up to 5 years for a total cost in the excess of $160 million. The BSO cited trade secrets again in declining to release other information submitted by the Correct Care as part of its proposal, including company financial statements as well as a list of any state, federal, professional board or grand jury investigations, debarments, or license suspensions or restrictions regarding you, your principals, or anyone working on your behalf within the past 7 years. BSO requires bidders to provide information about lawsuits and investigations to help it reevaluate their competency and honesty. Financial statements can show A bidder stability bid proposals were ranked by an internal BSO committee, but it was Sheriff Scott Israel who ultimately chose Tennessee-based Correct Care to replace Miami's Armour's Correctional Health Services. Ain't this great? Our illustrious sheriff from Broward County. Not my sheriff, though. But they say, oh, but that guy's okay. Yeah, look what he's doing. Fumbling around as usual. Probably blame it on the other guy. Maybe blame Donald Trump for this if it doesn't go through, right? He has that witch hunting fetish, which is blown back in his face. Florida Bulldogs sought to access the same material to evaluate privately held Correct Care's claim to BSO that its successful litigation history is directly reflective of the higher standard of care we provide. Also, the Bulldog wanted to examine what way, if any, Sheriff Israel and his team gave to the hidden information before Israel decided to award the contract to Correct Care, a company with an otherwise grim history of accusations of substandard care, needless patients' death, and ongoing federal grand jury investigation of possible corruption in its relationship with the Norfolk, Virginia Sheriff's Office and a former sheriff. Records withheld without explanation. In response to Bulldog's request, BSO released in a late 277 pages from the Correct Care's proposal, but redacted dozens of other pages without citing any exemption to Florida public records law as required to justify why those pages were withheld. To ask to explain what those withholdings, BSO contract manager Irene Costa in a July 28th email said Correct Care, or CCS, asserted that all of its redacted pages were shielded from public scrutiny and trade secrets by Florida statutes 815.045 and 1812.081. CSS stands firm that litigation history is exempt, and BSO is not in a position to release that information at this time, Costa wrote. In the contrast of outgoing inmate healthcare provider Armor Correctional agreed to the release of his litigation history back to 2011. The 13-page document, BSO made public lists and access of 375 lawsuits alleging malpractice and or civil rights violations in the federal and state courts in Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Nevada, New York, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, and Virginia. Many cases were filed by inmates without a lawyer and were dismissed. No cases were decided by a jury, while 41 cases were settled confidentially out of court. 120 cases were listed as pending. BSO's rationale to keep secret Correct Care's redacted pages as erroneous and strikes at the heart of the government oversight, according to Barbara Peterson, president of the Tallahassee-based First Amendment Foundation. Would you accept that a healthcare company is going to get sued a lot? Would you not expect them to keep it secret? And the fact that they're trying to keep it secret raises a lot of questions, she said. In the portion of his bid response that did not seek to hide, Correct Care noted that a certain amount of litigation is to be expected for a company that is among the nation's largest provider for correctional health care, with more than 270,000 patients nationwide. High quality of services. Nevertheless, we believe our litigation history reflects relatively modest losses for business of our size and scope, and is indicative of the high quality of services we provide. The company stated it went on note that most civil lawsuits filed against it are per se, where the plaintiff inmate is not represented by a lawyer. Nearly all of these cases are ultimately dismissed with no finding of liability against CCS. Still, lawsuits against Correct Care elsewhere recently have made headlines. In April 2017, Associated Press reported that Pierce County, Washington has sued Correct Care alleging that its medical services to some inmates were wholly inadequate. The news service also reported that it had obtained a letter from a local prosecutor to a lawyer for Correct Care subsidiary ConMed, stating that a jury would find its operation of the county's jail and medical clinic to be incompetent, unprofessional, and morally reprehensible. In May 2018, the Obama World Herald reported that attorneys had filed negligence and malpractice claims against the company and Nebraska's Douglas County on behalf of 13 current and former inmates who they allege were denied proper medical treatment. In one case, an emaciated inmate just released from the county took a cab to his cousin's home, but was so weak he could not make it to the front door, collapsed on the lawn, and was taken to an ambulance to a hospital. There, the paper said Roger Cook, 55, learned what had made him so sick. During 6 months, he had complained to his jailers of advanced lung cancer. Cook, who lost 64 pounds while incarcerated, died 10 days later. Crick here boasted about himself in the part of his Broward proposal about his finances while electing to assert confidentiality for his balance sheet and statement of operations. It claimed a compound annual growth rate of 36% over the past 5 years. This rapid growth, combined with the proven business practices, makes CCS one of the most financially stable companies in the industry. We currently generate in excess of $1 billion in annualized revenue, along with a high level of operating cash flow. Our financial strength and leading industry position will allow to provide uninterrupted, consistent, and financial. Sorry about that. I guess I got lost there. Where the heck am I? Yeah, provide consistent and financial responsible programs for our clients. Correct Care went on to note that it's partnered with 3 marquee equity investors, the al-Qaeda Group, Frazier Healthcare, and GTCR, that manage a combined $18.4 billion of investments and are fully committed to supporting our company's continued growth. Well. There's other links here as well you should check out about the healthcare providers. So this is nothing new on what is really happening, but it's very interesting that Scott Israel has to say. So if you hang out with habitual screw-ups, you're gonna get homage. That's what Scott Israel wants you to believe, and some of his associates in the Broward Sheriff's Office. So once again, another black eye that was created for Broward County Sheriff's Office under the man, federalized sheriff himself, the member of Homeland Security, Scott Israel. So when folks, you gotta do the recall vote, because I'll be the first one to sign it. If I have to go out there and do it myself, so be it. Don't just wait for the governor of Florida to get him fired or not. If that's the case, it'll happen when we least expect it. So I would say this: get rid of these clowns, these people that were considered incompetent, and make sure Sheriff Scott Israel and his associates get the boot as well. All right? Enough of this garbage. Sick of this guy. He's been hiding because the man's being exposed, which I always say, welcome to blowback, where witch hunting doesn't pay. All right, so the next one here, my friends, came from intelnews.org, and it's very, very cool. And it's interesting here. It says, U.S.-backed alliance in Yemen war bribes recruits al-Qaeda warlords reports find. This is by Joseph Finsanakis. As it reads here, it came out today, by the way. And it came out here, Yemeni militias backed by Saudi Arabia, the United States, and the United Arab Emirates are actively paying off al-Qaeda allied factions to abstain from the fighting and are recruiting al-Qaeda members to fight against Shiite rebels, according to a new investigative report. Ever since 2015, when the civil war in Yemen broke out, the U.S., along with its Arab allies UAE, Saudi Arabia, has supported Sunni troops in their war against Shiite Houthi rebels. The latter are believed to be supported by Iran, and the U.S.-backed coalition is engaged in an effort to curtail what it sees as Iranian expansionism in the Middle East. But Iranian-supported fighters are just one of the many well-armed factions involved in the Yemeni civil war, which Washington is absently against. Another such faction is al-Qaeda in the Islamic Peninsula, or AQAP, believed to be the strongest surviving branch of the group that carried out the attacks of September 11, 2001. You think I'm still going to buy that story? Please, stop lying. For several years now, the U.S.-led coalition in Yemen has argued that its forces severely limited AQAP strength and the ability to fight, and that the group territorial control has been shattered. But a new investigative text published on Monday by the Associated Press argues that the reason why AQAP's activities appear to have decreased in Yemen is that its commanders are being bribed by U.S.-backed Sunni Sunni militias, and that its fighters are being recruited to fight against Houthis. As strict Sunni Salafists, AQAP members view the Shia Houthis as apostates and enemies of Islam. They are therefore effectively on the same side of the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen. Notes the editors of the Associated Press report, citing interviews with 24 officials, including Yemeni security officers, our militia commanders, tribal mediators, and members of al-Qaeda. The report's authors say that the U.S.-backed Sunni militias actively recruit al-Qaeda militants because they're considered exceptional fighters. The Associated Press also claimed that the Sunni coalition has struck a series of secret agreements with AQAP, under what it pays off its fighters to abandon several Yemeni towns that were under their control. Upon leaving, these AQAP fighters were allowed to take them with tons of military equipment and valuables, including cash. In one case, AQAP was bribed to abandon the port city of Mokalla, Yemen's fifth largest urban center, and its fighters were allowed to keep their weapons and up to $100 million in looted cash deposits, said the Associated Press. In another case, AQAP's militants were paid off to leave several towns in Yemen, Abayan province, and 250 of them were incorporated into the so-called security belt, a Sunni militia backed by the government of UAE. The AQAP fighters reportedly told that the security belt commanders that they would unite with the devil himself in the face of Houthis. How nice, some like nice little sweet talk, I would say, huh? The Associated Press notes that there is no evidence that funds supplied to Yemeni Sunni militias by the U.S. have ended up into the hands of AQAP. Additionally, the U.S. government had repeatedly denied accusations by Russia, Syria, and others. It supports various al-Qaeda factions. However, the Associated Press argues that the U.S. Pentagon had been privy to the secret agreements between the Sunni militias and the AQAP. Some say may end up strengthening al-Qaeda's most formidable local branch anywhere in the world. Well, Associated Press is connected to Stratford. That's one that a lot of people say, and very interesting here indeed. But the whole AQAP, the Mujahideen, offspring of the Mujahideen under the Carter administration, and of course the late, not so great Zbigniew Brzezinski. I just really wonder, it really boggles the mind at times when you see these people with their al-Qaeda flag as ISIS flag, and we all know it's all one world order funded, CIA endorsed, etc. We're going to stop playing this propaganda game, especially if you have innocent people getting slaughtered in the one of the most poorest nations in that region. I say, do a freeze on all that. That's from redistribution of wealth to become a murderous agenda. What the U.S. does is finances and sell the weapons to Saudi Arabia. But one of the areas really gets my mind. They all getting bribed and taking the money and run. Something you got to look at. Pretty pathetic, I would say. And hey, let's just shut them all down. And you know what? The war will be over a lot quicker. And rebuild that country, because too many beautiful people in that nation are suffering big time, and I condemn it with a passion. All right, next one here came from the conservatoriumnews.com. Vips asked Twitter to restore Van Buren's account. The Veterans Military Intelligence Professional for Sanity, in a memo on the Twitter board of directors, questioned its decision to suspend the account of one of its members without due process. August 8th, Twitter board of directors, Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, which is VIPS, suspension of VIPS associated Peter Van Buren's Twitter account. We at the Veteran Intelligence Professional for Sanity are greatly disturbed by the recent decision of your management to permanently suspend the Twitter account at We Meant Well of our colleague Peter Van Buren. Peter is highly respected former Foreign Service officer possessing impeccable credentials for critiquing current developments that might lead to a new war in Eastern Europe or Asia, something which we Americans presumably all would like to avoid. In 2011, our colleague Peter published a book, We Meant Well, How I Helped Lose the Battle for the Hearts and Minds of the Iraqi People, about the poor decision making by both civilians and military that led to the disastrous occupation and false democracy development in Iraq. It is Peter's concern that our country may be well proceeding down the same path again, possibly with Iran, Syria, and other countries in the Middle East region. It is our understanding that Peter became involved in an amicus Twitter exchange with several mainstream journalists over the theme of government lying. One of the parties to the exchange reported to be Jonathan Katz at Katz on Earth, possibly joined by some of his associates, complained. Subsequently, and without any serious investigation for a chance for rebuttal regarding the charges, Peter was suspended by you for harassing, intimidating, or using fear to silence someone else's voice. Peter absolutely denies that anything like that took place. We also have also learned that Daniel McAdams, executive director of the Ron Paul Institute and Prosperity, and a highly respected former congressional officer, weighed in to defend Peter and was also suspended by you. And Scott Horton, editorial director of Antiwar.com Radio, was suspended for the use of improper language against cats. Horton and McAdams cannot add new tweets while under suspension, but Peter's permanent suspension included a deletion on all of his 7 years archive of tweets, though actual exchange leading up to his punishment cannot currently be examined. Your actions suggest there are possibilities, of all which are quite plausible given that your system for punishing users is far from transparent. First, may be engaged in a systematic manipulation in some of our users and are able to complain to have friends. Do likewise in order to solely the reputation of a Twitter user who is doing more than the engaging heated debate over the issues that concern all of us. Second, there is a distinct possibility that you are responding to either deep-pocketed or particularly strident advocacy groups that may themselves have agendas to silence opposition voices. We note that Google is currently working with some powerful foundations to censor content they object to, which comes up in search engine results. Finally, third, we also suspect a possible government hand in that companies like yours, include Facebook, have become very sensitive to alleged subversive content, deleting accounts and blocking users, kowtowing to government suggestions to silence critics of administration policies may well be considered a desirable proactive step by your management as well as other social media companies. But censorship is censorship, no matter how you dress it up. We, veterans intelligence professionals for sanity, believe that systematic and or institutionalized censorship of tweets and accounts uses fundamentally the wrong way to go unless they are very explicit and sustained threats to violence or other criminal behavior. The internet should be free to include, most particularly, the ability to post commentary that is not mainstream or acceptable to the establishment. That is what Peter has been doing, and we applaud him for it. We respectfully request that you examine the facts in the case with the objective of reconsidering and possibly restoring suspension of Peter Van Buren's Twitter account. Thank you. For the steering group, Veterans Intelligence for Professional Sanity, William Binney, who is a former technical director, world geopolitical military analyst, NSA co-founder, Signet Automation Research Center, who is retired, Richard H. Black, Senator of Virginia, 13th District, Colonel, U.S. Army, retired, former Chief, Criminal Law Division, Office of the Judge Advocate General, the Pentagon Associates VIPs at Senate, Richard Black, Bogan Dezakovic, the former team leader of the Federal Air Marshals and Red Team FAA Security retired Associate VIPs, Philip Gidari, CIA Operations Officer, retired at Infangene Larry C. Johnson, former CIA and State Department counterterrorism officer who retired. Michael S. Kearns, Captain, United States Air Force, retired. Wing Commander, RAFF, retired. Former intelligence officer and Master Suri instructor at MSK 76793. This is nice. I like this. Jim Karakaya, former CIA counterterrorism officer and former senior investigator, Senate Foreign Relations Committee. You can go on his tweet as well. Linda Lewis, WMD Preparedness Policy Analyst, USDA retired, Associated VIPs. Edward Loomis, NSA Cryptologic Computer Scientist, retired. Ray McGovern, former U.S. Army Infantry Intelligence Officer and CIA Analyst, retired. Annie McMahon, former intelligence officer in the UK's MI5 Domestic Security Service, affiliated VIPs. Elizabeth Murray, Deputy National Intelligence Officer for the Near East, CIA and National Intelligence Council, retired. Todd E. Pierce, Major U.S. Army Judge Advocate, retired. Scott Ritter, former Major USMC, former UN Weapons Inspector, Iraq. Colleen Rowley, FBI Special Agent and former Minneapolis Division Legal Counsel, retired. J. Kirk Wiebe, former Senior Analysis, Signet Automation Research Center, NSA, retired. Sarah Wilton, Commander U.S. Naval Reserve, retired, and Defensive Intelligence Agency. Robert Wing, former Service Officer, Foreign Service Officer, Associated VIPs. Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. VIPs is made up of former intelligence officers, diplomats, military officers, and congressional staffers. The organization, founded in 2002, was among the first critics of the U.S. justification for launching a war against Iraq. VIPs associated a U.S. foreign and national security policy based on genuine national interests rather than contrived threats promoted for largely political reasons. An archive of VIPs memoranda is available at consortiumnews.com. I have to say I am very pleased on what these individuals done. Beautiful letter, and it's time to Twitter and any other social media outlets, if they do censor individuals such as Van Buren, give them the explanation. What are your merits? I could tell you this. I'm not buying this at all when it comes to their defense. I'm not really too surprised either what some of these mainstream social media sites are doing. It's just another example. They want to shut people up and say, no, they believe we need them. So, but the truth of the matter is, it can counter it. And I know Twitter is probably Twitter sites may be going down as usual. Just like Facebook. If you're going to censor, it's going to blow back in your faces. Stop selling your rear ends to the state. And do the right thing. Because I can say this. There's plenty of other outlets out there, such as gab.ai, gab.ai, which are more of a free speech version of Twitter. So anyone out there, I encourage you to go there as well, because I have an account with them. And look for other decentralized social media outlets, because it is big information wars happening. Just accelerate a couple more notches. And I'll say this: I'm not angry. I'm just inspired, because I expect this. I was prepared for this to occur at any time, a long time ago. I'll say at least good 10, 12 years, I would say. 14 years? Yeah, I expect this last 14 years in good faith. So I'll be very fair. All right, we'll do one more here. And it came from News with Views. This is by Ron Erert. This here is Representative Government Dead. And it came out today. It says here, experience have shown that even under the best forms of government, those entrusted with power have, in time and by slow operations, perverted it into tyranny. Thomas Jefferson. Great quote. While trying to come up with a subject for our weekly column, America's immigration dilemma started doing ever-tightening circles in our mind. It is a dilemma that has been coming at legal Americans like slow-moving freight train for several decades, and is now may have reached a point where it cannot be fixed politically. The legal immigration freight train has become a runaway. Because of the situation, out of building frustration and outright anger, we began a title of our next article with, "If the governments won't deport illegals, then legal Americans must." But of course, if we follow with that title and wrote it in an article around it, we would be guilty of advocating violence or vigilantism. That's how far our frustration went until logic and reason took over and they realized why illegal immigration can't be fixed under the current system. It's because representative government is hopelessly divided and most likely forever broken with massive intervention by the people. Americans, at least some Americans, cling to representative government and a constitutional republic out of perception that the vision of our founding fathers will be forever enshrined in the annals of politics and the halls of government. That would be true, except for the human failings of greed, lust, and power that build up over time when left unattended. The founding fathers warned us that government could eventually evolve into political favors, bribery, payoffs, double dealing, corruption, collusion, conspiracy, and racketeering. Of course, remember, you never trust the government. Look up the Declaration of Independence if you have any questions. If the people let it. The sad reality is we have, because we've been watching too many TV shows, looking at our favorite sports teams and going, police state's okay as long as I have my NFL. That's right. Some of the people are trying to undo the government cabal, where millions of other Americans like it just the way it is, because they are freely profiting from our increasingly corrupt, unconstitutional system. Representative government has failed on all accounts, mostly due of two observable conditions. First, the condition is apathy of the American people, and the second condition is ever-widening gap between two vastly different and opposing ideologies. One ideology is fixed the idea society slowly evolves away from the individual independence, constitutional unalienable rights, and self-reliance due to rising human destinies, to a culture that is heavily depend on government and government services. The other ideology is a direct opposite of the former, a compromise or coexistence between the two ideologies that most likely evaporated into thin air because of too many Americans have been bought off with promises of free stuff by one of those ideologies. Feel the hype. Feel the hype. We hate freedom, but we want free shit. Exactly, just like that. Since the people aren't paying much attention to what the government representatives are doing as respects their freedom and natural rights, those representatives are free to do pretty much whatever they want to do. The representatives can enrich themselves at the expense of the masses. They can buy more votes with their money. They can join the world elite in establishing world government. They can open the floodgates to legal immigration to ulterior motives, like votes. They can increase their power over the American people by passing highly restrictive laws for millions of different reasons, all which are supposed to benefit the masses or the planet, but don't. The fixes to the problem of representative government require the approval and ratification of the representatives themselves, equivalent to the probable fox guarding the henhouse. Term limits will go away towards fixing the vexing problems of representative government, but the representatives are quite reluctant to deny themselves of the extreme benefits of seemingly perpetual political power, benefits not offered or available to the masses. All common sense political fixes to the problem facing Americans never materialize in America's representative government. The divisions between the two parties' ideologies produce either no legislation or partisan legislation that contains meaningless compromises that lead to conflicts and loopholes over which lawyers can argue for over decades, and that is, they can even come to a compromise. Alarmingly, our representative government RG system has morphed into an intertwined entanglement of a corrupt, interlocked national and international interests of commerce, finance, trade, and labor, accompanied by government enablers of the RG system in the executive, judicial, and legislative branches. The tentacles of one interest are inextricably interwoven into the tentacles of all other interests. Finding out what drives one leads to the complex maze of closed-court backrooms and secret meetings. All the sources are purposely hidden and camouflaged. Traces to find the truth down dead-end paths are blocked by impenetrable obstacles. Sources of the RG system's power are elusive, and they are anything but constitutional. The RG system exists because citizen apathy and survives, thrives, and grows on the people's money driven by the special interest elites. Special interests, including internationalists, corporations, unions, socialists, and environmentalists, drive federal, state, and local governments. They are a viral infection in the RG system. Corrupt politicians whose only priority is to get elected or re-elected drive the legislative branch of government and are part of the RG system. Even the good representatives, that is not a contradiction of terms, will eventually be sucked into the RG system. The RG system has produced the likes of emotional mobsters, Bill and Hillary Clinton. It has spawned corruption that recently exposed the Department of Justice and the FBI under leadership of James Comey, Robert Mueller, Andrew McCabe, Michael Orr, Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, and many more. The RG system gave us ridiculously expensive judicial system that is far removed from the common law of the people and the constitutional protections. The RG system repealed our citizen grand jury mechanism for holding government accountable by the people. The RG system gave us the 16th Amendment, the Federal Reserve, the Internal Revenue Service. The RG system brought Americans to the suspension of the gold standard. RG system gave us worthless money that is an instrument of debt backed by nothing. Another term for it is called fiat. Look what's happening in Venezuela with their money system. Very profound example. The RG system gave us news media that is devoid of objectivity and now personifies a wholly liberal system bias. The RG system gives us liberal colleges that now espouses only a liberal viewpoint and silences any other. God bless censorship, right? The RG system gave us radical environmentalism that tells man he is a virus on earth and must be heavily taxed and regulated and freedom denied. The RG system gives us social justice, a liberal ideology that promotes and supports the only collective, never the individual rights. Under these conditions, the U.S. Constitution has become virtually meaningless. Our representative government system gave us the entrenched establishment and the deep state. The RG system gave us an insane immigration policy that directly benefits one of the two opposing ideologies and is a financial drag on the rest of us. The RG system gave us a government-run healthcare bureaucracy that is expensive, inefficient, cumbersome, and generally corrupt. The people never really benefit from the new policies and are only more taxed by them, while they continue to lose more of their freedoms. The people representatives under our representative form of government have let the people down, and instead the representatives have turned inward towards their own self-interest at people's expense. But then, we aren't telling you anything new. For 12 years now, we, along with many other patriots, have pointed out the flaws in our representative form of government, and we get positive responses rewarding our efforts and telling us to keep up the good work. But then when we mention possible fixes to those flaws, we hear deafening silence. The fixes evade us because instinctively we know that those fixes will upset our status quo to which we have adopted. We effectively adapted to government tyranny, knowingly full well that to override a government tyranny will make immense sacrifices we're willing to make. The German people adapted to the rising tyranny of Hitler and the Third Reich. Many have been duped into believe as the rise of Donald Trump presidency will save our republic. And I hear that all the time. Well, Donald Trump's going to save our Constitution. Well, I'm going to continue on here. But all that the Trump administration of Congress did is so benevolently gave us some of our own money back open up some more jobs, reduce some regulations, and put more food on our tables. People didn't do it. The government did. We, the people, owe the government for our prosperity. That ain't freedom, folks. The government knows well that a full belly stops all kinds of complaints and gripes about government tyranny and adds up to votes for the providers. Keep them fat, dumb, and happy, and the masses will be less likely to jump on the government's case. Being a goody two-shoes, little handouts, is not going to get you anywhere. That's what this person's saying. On what fools we mortals be when we believe government cares for you and me. Precisely. The government in Latin control the mind. Look it up. For 4,000 years or more, people have been adapting to slowly evolving tyranny. When it explodes in their faces and the chains wrapped around their wrists and ankles and the jail doors slammed shut, or before a noose snaps their neck and then yell, "Give me freedom." But Alice, by then it is too late. We close with this abomination. Some citizens are frustrated with the unreasonable and, in some cases, treasonable actions of our government, will resort to violence to relieve their pent-up anger and frustration. No matter how much politicians shield themselves with a huge police presence at government meetings and conferences, or when they are alone out of the community, some Americans will resort to violence against those who think they are responsible for the grief and frustration, and will find a way to deliver that violence. Incidences of violence will grow as the news of tyranny tightens. Being a politician will eventually become extremely hazardous unless politicians wise up and return to the principles of freedom and liberty laid down for us by the founding fathers and paid for by the blood of countless brave men and women that have gone before us. Nevertheless, in no way we are condoning this type of violence. If you squeeze a ripe tomato too hard, it will ooze out between your fingers. If you squeeze Americans too hard, unintended and sometimes violent consequences will be the result. It is time, and an unescapable fact, which too many of us ignore. Thomas Jefferson wrote, "What is more necessary to make us happy and prosperous people? A wise and frugal government, which shall restrain men from injuring one another, shall leave them otherwise free to regulate their own pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. It is the sum of good government." The Internal Revenue Service will not like that, but you know what? I don't give a damn what they think. Anyone who's paying attention knows for sure that the government described by Jefferson is not the government that exists today. Our representative form of government is essentially dead, but we can't just wrap our heads around it. We live in an establishment-run oligarchy that robs us blind for our own good. To victor goes the spoils, and we the people are not the victors. So see, ladies and gentlemen, the first title of this article may have been more right than the second and the last and final, and the only solution to government tyranny is. Very good commentary, I could say. This is how you have to look at everything. You want to make impact, start from the ground up, not top down. Even a person like myself should take the initiative on focusing on these government commissions, meetings, and all that in my county and city. Everyone needs to start doing that. Do your homework. Blast them with facts. Don't just screaming out top of your lungs. That's irrelevant. They get angry when you have informed people with merit. And some of these guys get real antsy because they know the truth can be exposed. So never, ever complain and not take action, because then you're just another number to them. All right. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or send me something that's interesting, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with decorum. You can hit me on all the social media sites I'm on. Just hit the search engine, and you'll find me. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com or to encrypted ones, mainly with the Proton Mail account, LokiLuck03@protonmail.com. All right, so this one here I'm going to be playing. So I do a song from a band called Gears. It was fun because we follow each other on Instagram. Actually, they followed me, and so I just take initiative, do a little search at Reverb Nation, and they are based out of Miami, Florida, which is very cool. Hard rock, heavy rock, groove metal, and I'm going to be doing a song called "Take Away," and they do have a gear store and all that, and some of the press. They're a Miami-based band. They're currently writing and recording their upcoming EP with Corey Lowry from I Empire, Dark New Day, a longtime friend, yeah. So he's supposed to be in Stuck Mojo, Corey Lowry, if I'm correct. So that's very cool. So I'm very pleased with that. So yeah, it's one of the things you should check out, my friends. I'm gonna play that one song, and that will be one I addressed already, which is called, not the Book of Lies, but it is called Take Away. All right, my friends, once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the maniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you. Enjoy the tune.
away and get a little bit more. I need a way to push away and get a little bit. I need a way to push away and get a little bit more. I need a way to push away and get a little bit.